Let me get started. It is my pleasure to welcome you all to another guest speaker session from Innovative Astro Solution. As a student of astrology and also as a mentor, I always wanted to teach you the best strategies to judge the horoscope. So thanks to advancement of technology, with these advanced learning platforms, we can learn from experts all over the country. So today I have invited Sri Partho Banerjee to talk on the advanced topic. Partho have done a master's in computer application, and he was working as a full-time IT employee for more than 14 years. He is a certified corporate IT trainer from IIT Kanpur. And from astrology standpoint, he has more than 20 years of experience in astrology, both in consultation as well as in teaching. Regarding the topic, as a beginner in astrology, some of you may have confusion in understanding the strength and nature of a planets. Of course, these two are very important to give the accurate prediction. So I have invited expert astrologer Sri Partho Banerjee to explain these techniques with his own style. So without further delay, let me welcome Partho to take over the presentation. Welcome, Partho.
Thank you, Muthu. Thank you. Hello, everyone. As Muthu just introduced me, my name is Partho Banerjee, and without too much focus on me, we'll focus on astrology. And just to add something to what Muthu has already told about me, I have always been into astrology. Maybe not in the professional capacity, but definitely in a passionate capacity. And now also, before everyone joined, 5-7 minutes ago, I was telling Muthu that, because this is subject of my passion, sometimes I do have a tendency of kind of drifting apart from the exact topic and taking my eyes off from the clock. So do kind of intervene whenever you feel required. So the reason for that is that astrology is really a passionate subject, not because of the mundane matters only, but also for the science of it. And I over the years I have trained my mind to see things from the Vedic perspective. When we say it's science, it's very tempting and easy to get lost into the gross or the manifested, the physical, the objective side of everything. So when we say it is a Vedanga, it's connected with Vedas. So we need to have that Shastra, the fundamentals, okay, in our mind when we talk about concepts, because as Muthu said, thanks to technology, technology can sometimes bring in a lot of alien ideas, innovation, and fundamental Shastra basis. They can contradict each other. So we have to always take a balanced approach. So research is good, but when we are losing the Vedic framework, so we need to be absolutely sure of what we are doing in astrology. So we may not like to call it Jyotish. We might just say it's astrology and go ahead with that. That will be fair to all, actually, right? So anyway, coming to the topic today, strength and nature of planets. This sounds like something very fundamental, and it is fundamental. But the biggest pitfall, biggest mistake that we make in learning, when we are learning and when we are applying, and this doesn't mean just beginners, this can mean professional, seasoned astrologers, practicing astrologers. Sometimes we might ignore the fundamentals. And if we, on the contrary, if we focus on the fundamentals first, we don't get wrong so easily when we are analyzing the chart. So analysis and prediction are two different things. there is no prediction possible without analysis. So you have to understand that what a planet is capable of doing and what it's out there to do in a chart. Nature and strength. We'll look at the definition and everything. It's there in the presentation. I will explain that. So once we are clear on these basics, then we are clear on what we call planets. There's no astrology without planets. Once we are clear on planets, we can think of applying that to the person whose chart we are looking at. Then once we are thorough with these things, then we can think of predictions. So it's in this internet driven world, YouTube and Facebook driven world of today, there are new techniques doled out every second day, rather 2 techniques per day. Very popular ones, very tempting ones. They always have 5 horoscopes to show that. But we need to be very clear on the fundamentals of the horoscope. Only then we would know what technique will work in a chart and what technique will not work in a chart. Because as you have already seen, there are hundreds of techniques. Now, those, and you also probably know, if you have been applying those techniques that we learn every second day in charts, if you have taken the pains of doing that, you probably know it already, that all techniques don't work in all charts. So how do you have that filtration? So you can have that filtration if you are sound and solid on fundamentals. And among the fundamentals, strength and nature of planets is very important. There are then houses and rashis. If you understand these 4 concepts very strongly, you can, if you practice thereafter, then you can be sure that you are sound on fundamentals. Okay, so without much ado, let's jump in the definition of strength. Then I will explain what it means, and then I have a couple of charts to apply the concepts as well. First of all, theory.
We have a poll actually. So to understand like what is the current level of understanding for the audience. So people are already responding. I think you should be able to see that response. I think, Parthu.
Yes.
Yeah. So as of now, you see the most people are aware of it, but they are not confident in applying them in the actual chart. So definitely there is a lot of scope for you to explain them to the audience.
That's great news. Because the biggest hurdle in astrology, more so because of this, today's internet-driven world, is we think we know it. There is always a video that we might have watched before. Someone whom we consider credible is teaching or going to teach us something. It's always good to think that I don't know probably, or at least to be open that I could probably know more. If I know it is a kind of a hurdle. In fact, in my courses, that's a challenge I face to have students unlearn a lot of things that they have learned, because some concepts don't make sense without some basic and core principles. In the absence of those core principles, a lot of concepts, they go off the roof. They don't make any sense. So yes, it's always good to be aware that there is something that we need to know more. We are not there at the moment. So it's good news. That's why I call it good news, to be aware, because if we know that we don't know that well, so it shows an open mind.
Right.
It could be modest, but I appreciate that still. So yes, we'll do the fundamentals. That's why I picked up the fundamental topic, because it is a fundamental thing, and I'm going to talk about fundamentals.
Right. So before, I think one more poll is there. What do you think? Why do you think understanding planetary strength is important? So there is an option to type in your response. So let us hear from our audience.
Yeah.
Why do you think understanding the planetary strength is important? So the results are showing. Okay, I got a lot of response to predict right. This is fundamental. It shows the strength, and for accurate prediction, it is useful for effective prediction, basis for analysis. There are a lot of good response. Benefic, malefic. Yeah, understanding benefic, malefic is also very important.
That's the nature of a planet. Yeah.
Yes, correct. To
So
judge the
yes,
chart. Yeah.
good, good. Thanks for the response, friends. Most of these responses, I do agree. In principle, those are right. One of the responses say that it can't be ascertained. I quite like that also. Uh,
Right.
so the softwares give us numerical strength, which are best seen in the relative context. You know, uh, but there has to be a method. There has to be a simple way which is fairly functional, quick, and yet accurate. You know, astrology, the weakest link is the practical application today. Today, you have lots of theory concepts. You can read books. These are available everywhere. There is no shortage of learning new concepts. But I have a chart in front of me. Now, how do I see the strength of a planet? So first of all, let's understand what the strength of a planet means. Then we'll see, a couple of things in the chart. So strength, so the definition of the strength of planet is its ability to give favorable results and block unfavorable results. So this is purely the definition of strength, not the nature of a planet. Nature of a planet talks about what it wants to do, good versus bad. So we are not talking about that here. We are talking about the ability of a planet to give favorable results. At the moment, I'm not talking what the planet wants to do here. Okay, this is very important to understand. So there is a general misconception why I have written the second part of it, that and block the unfavorable results, to clear that misconception. A lot of people think, and a lot of people doesn't include beginners here, including practicing seasoned astrologer, they think that if a planet is malefic, means if a planet intends to give negative results, then it is better to have that planet as weak. That's assumed. It's actually not a right assumption. Strength of a planet is its ability to give favorable results and block the unfavorable results. So if it is weak, it becomes that much more vulnerable to give negative results if the planet's job is to give negative results in the chart, or because of its nature, whatever. Nature could be natural or functional. We are not talking about that here. We are talking about the abilities here. So if a planet is, let's say, 80% strong, let's say, okay, just have a ballpark figure. Let's say a planet is 80% strong. The software tells you it's 80% strong. So forgetting the benefic versus malefic nature, what we can say by that 80% number is the planet is capable of giving 80% good results and is capable of giving only 20% negative results. What will it actually give depends on the nature. But if a planet is out there to give you good results, it has to be capable of giving. And if the planet is out to give negative results, then it needs to have a strength to be able to block those negative results. So at least it gives. So if this planet is, let's move to next slide. This is what I was talking about. I'll go back to that previous slide in a moment, but let's look at this slide. The second, this one, strength versus weakness, the binary. Binary, you understand, right? A versus B, yes versus no, right? 0 and 1, that's binary. There are only two possibilities, that's binary. So if a planet is, let's say, 65% strong, the green is strength and red is weakness. So out of all 100%, 65% strength versus 35% weakness. So this planet, whatever it is, this planet can give, can is the word, can give 65% positive results and only 35% malefic results. If it is 80% green, so 80% strong, so it can give 80% good results versus 20% bad results. It can, both is can. Will it or won't it? It is the nature of the planet. We'll talk about it later. Is this concept clearly? Yes, so it's blocking 65% bad results. Yes, absolutely. So we want all the planets in the chart to be strong, whether they are malefic or benefic. If it is malefic, it will not give the bad results, only in this case 35%. And if it is a benefic, it will give 65% good results. So it takes care of both the scenarios. So it's important to understand that it is best to have all the planets strong in the chart. Weakness is worthless. You know, even in human understanding, it's better to have a clever enemy than a foolish friend who can get you in trouble. But a foolish, a smart enemy, a powerful enemy, you are always kind of alert. You are on your toes. You are doing things to kind of not fall in a trap, right? So we need the planets to be strong. We'll talk about its role, benefic versus malefic, later. I mean, we have to see that in the chart. So if it is 65% strong, so it has, even if it is out there to give negative results, it will block out 65% negative results. That's what it means. So someone put it absolutely right. So I'll go back to the previous slide. The strength of a planet is its ability to give favorable results and block unfavorable results. So now both the parts of this definition make sense, isn't it? So if it is benefic, it will give favorable results. If it is not benefic, it will block unfavorable results to the extent it is strong. Pure and simple. So Shadbala and Vinshopaka Bal are the two ways to measure strength of a planet. Shad Bal, it has two words. Shad means six, Bala means strength. So 6-dimensional strength. We'll look at what are those 6 things in the strength of a planet. And Vimshokpal is also an alternate way to see strength of a planet. Both are authorized, classic, mentioned ways of seeing planetary strength. So classics means all the Jyotish classics. Most of them talk about these two strength of planets. Shadbala is spoken more about because it is mentioned in more classics. Vimshokpal is mentioned in only Brihadsparshi Shastra to my knowledge. So let's, yeah, BPH it is mentioned, right? So that's what I said, Brihadsparshi Shastra. So let's understand the nature of a planet before we get into the 6 dimensions of a strength, Shadbala. So there are 2 ways of understanding the benefic versus malefic nature. That's the nature, good versus bad, right? So natural nature versus functional nature. The biggest confusion, friends, here is people don't know when to use which one. In a Capricorn ascendant, Jupiter is lord of 3rd and 12th houses. Now, if Jupiter is a natural benefic planet, and if it is lord of, say, 8th house, which it would happen in Taurus ascendant, It's 8th house Lord. So how do we reconcile? How can I use these two facts, these two contradictory facts, that if a planet is functionally okay, now what is functional benefic? Sorry, functional benefic versus malefic. If it is Lord of good houses, that means 1, 4, 7, 10, these are Kendra houses or Trikona houses. Well, mostly the benefic versus malefic nature is about the natural nature versus the ownership of houses. Ownership is more important. Placement is more about strength. Yeah. So natural nature of a planet is this is kind of known to most people. The Shubha Graha versus Papa Graha means the benefic nature versus malefic nature, the natural nature. So Jupiter, Venus, Mercury, Moon, these are the 4 natural benefic planets, and other planets, that is Mars, Saturn, Rahu, Ketu, these are and Surya, Sun, these are natural malefic planets. This is kind of known to everyone. It's there, everyone. Okay, it's mentioned everyone. So I'm not spending too much time on the obvious facts. This is something I think everyone knows and everyone must have seen at least once everywhere. So natural nature is kind of very, very common. Everyone understands this. Now, functional nature is about the lordship of houses. So the Dusthana houses, that is 6th house, 8th house, and 12th house lords, they specifically 6th and 8th. Lordship of 6th and 8th is kind of considered malefic. So it makes a planet malefic. Doesn't matter the planet is already malefic or is a benefic by natural nature. So Jupiter, if it is a lord of 8th house, is a natural benefic, but it's a functional malefic. Similarly, Venus, if it is lord of 8th house, then it is a natural benefic, but functional malefic. How do you use these facts? That was what I asked. So you use it. The natural nature is used more in the static analysis. That does not mean the functional nature does not play a role. Means if it is 8, if Jupiter is a natural benefic but 8th house lord, it's a functional malefic, but natural benefic it remains in all charts. But if it is 8th lord, what do I do with this? So let's say Jupiter is placed in 4th house. So 4th house placement of Jupiter is good for 4th house because it's a natural benefic. Now, it will be nicer, it will be better if Jupiter was lord of good houses also. So for 4th house, where Jupiter is placed, it's good for the 4th house. But it would be nicer if Jupiter was also a functional benefic. But still, it remains a natural benefic, so it is still good for the 4th house, even if it is 8th house lord or 6th house lord. Similarly, if in 4th house Saturn is placed, as part of Jyotish core principles, it's not good for the 4th house. Now, if that Saturn, which is a natural malefic, is lord of a good house, or is a what we call, lord of 9th and 10th houses, it's good houses. But so that is slightly better than a Saturn that is a lord of a bad house like 8th house or 6th house. So you always have to see things in a gray scale. In astrology, remember, nothing is black and white. It is in gray scale. You have to see that on a gray scale, where is the marker of good versus bad going, weak versus strong going. So factors don't cancel out each other, but they kind of do something like arithmetic addition, -5 + 3. Okay, so things don't cancel out each other in astrology. The stronger factor will manifest more. So when you are doing a static analysis, means when you're looking at a chart and trying to understand how the person's career is, how the person's marriage is going to be, how the person's health is, So you are looking at houses, the relevant planets, right? So you have to see the natural nature more here. The functional nature does improve it or reduce it. Okay, but in prediction, it in for example dasha, the thing is reversed. There, the functional role is more important, and natural role plays a backseat. The way it is delivered, that is by the natural nature. But functional means where it is placed, which houses it owns. These factor will dominate in the predictive part. But you have to understand in the analysis which planet is good for which domain of life. So if you are studying someone's career, for example, so you have to understand the stakeholders of career, the Lord, the Karakas, and how to see these planets' strength. Whatever the system you are using, you have to see. And then when it comes to prediction, you know that such a planet is good for this house. So when this planet comes in Dasha Antardasha, it is supposed to give good results for that house. But how good, that you have to see from the strength. If it is strong enough to deliver, it will deliver. Otherwise, it won't be able to, despite wanting to. So that's why the strength of a planet is very important. Your analysis may be right, but the results may not come if you have not been able to understand the nature of planets and strength of planets. So strength is the most important thing. Then comes the nature of planet, right? So I think if you have any questions, you can just ask. I can see it on the screen. The natural versus functional nature. I mean, the difference is clear. And when do you use which one? When you focus more on which one is clear, I think. So when you are doing the static analysis of the chart to see the life patterns of this person, which is the most important thing before predictions. So that time the static nature is more important, and the functional nature, it kind of increases or decreases the quality. For example, Saturn, if it is lord of good houses, it makes it less malefic. And if Jupiter, if it is lord of bad houses, it becomes less benefic. Yes, functional means.
Can you move to next slide? Like,
yeah, sure.
Yeah. So before Partho explains what is Shadbala, that's what he is going to talk about on regarding strength. You can type in your current understanding so that it will give much more clear understanding for him to explain it. So what is Shadbala? Type your current understanding.
Cool.
If you already don't know, that's not an issue. That's completely fine. What is Shadbala?
6 strength. Okay, good.
Okay. Okay, 6 strength of planets, strength and weakness, positional strength. Yeah, that's one of the strength, right? Okay, nice response.
Good. It's okay if you don't write there is no correct answer or incorrect answer. There are just answers.
Right.
So feel frank and feel free.
Strength of planet, 6
yes,
strengths.
That's right about the natural versus functional. Someone is asking. Hitesh, I think. So you're right, Hitesh. Yeah.
Yeah, mostly Q&A we will take it at the end so that you will consolidate and we can take it in one shot.
Perfect. So yeah, interesting. Welcome. So interesting responses coming on the strength. Someone wrote positional strength, fine. 6 type of strength, yeah, cool. 6-fold, yeah, excellent.
Right. Let me go to the thing.
Perfect.
Yeah, you can proceed. Yeah.
So good. So you have the basic idea of what it means. At least you have heard. That's good to know. So it's 6-dimensional strength. So 6-fold strength. Six ways of strength. So these ways are not kind of independent. They kind of add up together. And a planet which has more and more folds of or ways of strength, the type of strength, whatever word you like to use, just feel free. So if a planet has, for example, if you can read the words in the slide, Sthan Bala, Kal Bala, Dig Bala, Cheshta Bala, Ayan Bala, Nasargik Bala. So as and when the planet assumes more and more of these balas, means strengths, so its overall strength goes higher. So softwares, as I said, okay, they do give you the relative number, so you can uh, understand the relative strength of the planets from those numbers, but it doesn't give you the qualitative strength. Okay, so I may have my Mars strongest in my chart, you may have your Jupiter strongest in your chart, but overall the quality of the chart you have to see in the analysis. So those are different things in the software. Okay, all right, so coming to the Shadbala, so you need a planet to have more of this. The more of this 6 strengths a planet has, the more strong it becomes. All right. So Sthan. So okay, now come on. This is, I don't want to make it very theory heavy. The whole idea in the topic of the slide says see in chart quickly. Okay, so that's the word. So I don't want you to get bogged down in the theories. Well, you will take some time to understand it, what I'm telling you now, and you will take initially some time to see in the chart. But once you practice in some charts, 20-30 charts, you will start gaining speed. Okay, so seeing in chart is very simple, the way I'm going to drive it here. So Sthan Bala is the positional strength. Okay, Sthan is the place. So where it is placed in the chart, you have to see the Rashi. So exaltation is a strength. Mool Trikona, which is the active part, which active sign of the planet. For example, Mool Trikona of Mars is Aries. So if planet Mars is in Aries, it's is pretty strong. So strongest is exaltation. Next best is Mool Trikona. Next best is the own sign, the other sign of the planet. Then a friend sign. Planets have friendships between them. And then enemy sign and in debilitation, right? So what you have to see is if a planet is in which sign, the sign is important here, the Rashi. Okay, so if Jupiter is placed in, let's say, Capricorn, it's in debilitation sign, so it doesn't have Sthan Bala. Okay, it doesn't have the positional strength. If on the contrary Saturn is in Capricorn, is it strong or weak? It is strong because it's an own sign. Capricorn is sign of Saturn. If Venus is placed in Capricorn, it is still for the Venusian qualities it is strong because it is friend sign. But generally, I mean, Venus does not like for the marital purposes to remain in Saturn signs. Still, Capricorn is better than Aquarius. So I'm not getting into those details here, just to understand the concept and practically what it means. So I'm taking example of Capricorn here. Mercury in Capricorn is okay, nothing wrong. Okay, because Saturn, Venus, and Mercury are considered friends. Sun, Moon, Jupiter, Mars are considered friends of each other. So when planet goes to own sign, it is strong. If it is not own sign, then it can be in the friend sign. It is still better than neutral or enemy signs. So Shadbala, you kind of have an understanding just by looking at the Rashi, the sign of where the planet is placed. Okay. Then you have this concept called Kalbal. This Kalbal is the time of the birth. See, I just want to make it very simple. Kalbal is about the time of the birth. All you have to look in as not in the chart, but in the main area of the horoscope where they have given the details of the person's date of birth. So time of birth. If it is in the morning time, Jupiter is strong. roughly, if let's say 6 o'clock is the sunrise, so roughly 6 to 11:30, not exactly 6, leave 1 hour there. So from 7 to 11:30 or 7:30 to 11:30, Jupiter will be strong in the morning time. That's the time for worship and spiritual activities, meditation, yoga, best time. So Jupiter is strong that time. And thereafter, you all know sun is strong. When sun reaches the zenith, the peak, those 3-4 hours, sun is strong. Post lunch session, it's Venus that's strong until sunset. After sunset till, you can say, till maybe 9 p.m., Mars is strong. Thereafter, when moon goes strong in the sky, then those 4 hours before sunrise, next sunrise, Saturn is strong. And where Mercury is strong during changeover times. 1 hour before sunset, after sunset, 1 hour before sunrise, after sunrise. So in the peak noon, sun is strongest. Before that time is Jupiter's, after that time is Venus's. Then sunset happens. After sunset, leaving those 1 hour for Mercury away, Mars goes strong. Then next 4 hours, moon would be strong. Then next 4 hours are for Saturn. So roughly 24 hours, you are dividing in these sections. 3, 4 hour each. From sunrise to sunset, Jupiter, Sun and Venus in that order, from sunrise to sunset. And from sunset to next sunrise, Mars, Moon and Saturn in that order. And Mercury is strong just 1 hour before, after sunrise and sunset. So when you see the time of birth, you must be able to just say that, okay, this planet, this is the extra marks given to that planet, which has, the time of birth in its favor. So if someone is born at 10:30, yeah, twilight Mercury, you are right. So if someone is born at, let's say, 11 o'clock in the morning, so you'll say Jupiter gets extra Kalbal. So that's the time of birth. Keep things simple. There are a lot of theories about it. I'm not getting into those theories here. Just the thrust of this session is Mool Trikona is also strong, but that is part of Sthanbala. Someone asked about Mool Trikona. So we are talking Kalbala. Kalbala is the extra marks, extra strength that a planet gains by virtue of time of birth, because the native is born at a time when a particular planet is strong in the sky. So as we are talking now, it is like 7:43 in India. This is the time of Mars, or rather, sunset has happened a little, it's happening a little later. So Mercury is strong now, and after maybe 1 hour, Mars will go strong. So right now, as we are talking, Mercury is strong in the sky, because it is not too long after sunset. Okay, so this is how you see that which is the month. So you should know that summer versus winter. So sunrise, sunset times, they kind of vary, in different parts of the world. So accordingly, you must know, have a rough figure in the head that a planet gets some Kalbala by virtue of time of birth. So that is the second dimension. Okay, quickly, so you can just see the things and understand in your in your analysis. Then Digbala, this is also important. Digbala or Digbala, they both mean directional strength. Directional strength is as per the Lagna Rashi, as per the Lagna, the house, first house. The direction of the houses, not the Rashi. The 4 Kendra houses, 1, 4, 7, 10. 1, 4, 7, 10. These are the Kendra houses, the quadrant houses in English. Among these quadrant houses, some planets, they go strong. For example, not example, I'll mention for all. Jupiter is strongest in the first house as well as Mercury. So if in any chart, doesn't matter what sign that you see for Sthanbala, okay, doesn't matter what time of birth that you have seen in Kalbala. In Digbala, you see that a planet is placed in which house, Kendra house. So if Jupiter or Mercury, one of these or both, get placed in Lagna, then they get additional Digbala, the directional strength. It is, so they get extra marks for that. No, aspect is not counted here, it's the placement. In fourth house, both the water planets, means planets that have the tattva water. Planets do have tattva, right? Element. It's the entire manifested world is driven by tattva. Please understand this. If you can see something, feel something via your perception of sense, then there is a tattva about it, whether it is a living or non-living thing. Okay, tattva is the basis from which prana has created this entire creation. Okay, so tattva drives everything. The quality, the experience of life is driven by tattva. All right, so I'm not getting into that philosophical part here now. So water tattva planets are Moon and Venus. Okay, Jupiter is the Akash, the ether tattva, and Mercury is the earth element. So they go strong in the first house. We have seen the water sign planets, which are Moon and Venus, they get Digbala in the fourth house. So if you see in a chart Venus and or Moon in fourth house, you must know that they have got positional strength or Digbala. This is about position, where they are placed. Okay. Now in seventh house, the Vayu Tattva planet, that is Shani, the Saturn, it gets Digbala. So it gets strength if it is in seventh house. And in 10th house, the fire Tattva planets, which are Sun and Mars, they get Digbala, the directional strength. So these 7 physical planets, they get Digbala in 4 Kendra houses. So this means that if the person makes effort in the direction of these planets, they will get pleasant experiences in life. Okay, that's what Digbala means. Dig means direction. So next, okay, so I think we can move to the Cheshta Bala. Cheshta Bala is a Cheshta literally means efforts. Okay, Cheshta literally means effort. Prayatana, that's right. So Cheshta Bal, first of all, you know, I think a month or so ago I did a Facebook post saying that Cheshta Bal is not only about retrogression. Retrograde means as seen from Earth, that planet seems to be moving in the opposite direction. In reality, we know, okay, our astronomy and astrology was integrated in Jyotish. We know that planets never move opposite. Physical planets, they never move opposite, but as seen from Earth, they seem to be moving. Seem means they appear to be moving in the opposite direction. That is when we call them Vakri or retrograde. And retrograde, yes, retrograde motion planets, they have Cheshta Bala. Rahu and Ketu are always moving retro, but they are not physical planets, so we are not talking about them here. Okay, we are talking about other 7 planets. But my question is, this is not there anywhere in any literature. I have not seen this. What about Sun and Moon? They are never retrograde. They never move in the opposite direction, even for Jyotish. So can they never get Cheshta Bala? This question, no one has spoken, written to my knowledge anywhere. I have not seen it anywhere. But I will give you the answer that Varamir has written. In his Brihad Jataka, he has answered this question, not in the question answer format. He has said that Sun and the Moon, the luminaries, they get Cheshta Bala when sun is in northern course. Northern course means there is a Uttarayan, Dakshinayan. Means, sun's movement is moving upwards, or because it's not exactly horizontal plane. It's little the orbit of Earth. Sun is not actually moving. It's moon. It's Earth that is moving. So there's a 9-degree tilt. So because of that, there is always a upward versus downward motion of Earth around Sun. And so because we are seeing from Sun, we are seeing from Earth in a geocentric view, so we say Sun is moving like that. All right. So Sun we say Sun is moving in northerly course or southerly course. So we call it ayan, the direction. So Sun, if it is in Capricorn until Gemini, so Capricorn, Aquarius, Pisces, Aries, Taurus, and Gemini, if Sun is in one of these 6 signs, it is in its northerly course, Uttarayan. So that is when the two luminaries, that is Sun and the Moon, are having Cheshta Bal. And when Sun is in the other 6 rashis, that is from Cancer till Sagittarius, so it is in Dakshinayan, the southerly course. It's moving downwards. So that is not when Sun and Moon, they get Cheshta Bala. There are other ways of Cheshta Bala, so I'm not getting into that. The first obvious thing is the retrogression of these planets. And Sun and Moon, just check the Sun sign. If Sun is any of the signs from Capricorn till Gemini, so it is in Uttarayan, and hence Sun and Moon, they both get Cheshta Bala. Okay. Then next is the Ayan Bala. Ayan Bala means all the planets excuse me, all the planets, they get some Ayan Bala based on Sun's Dakshin versus Uttar Ayan position. So now I've just explained what is Uttar versus Dakshin Ayan. That means if Sun is in any of the signs from Capricorn till Gemini, it is in Uttarayan, northerly course. And if it is in the other 6 signs, that is from Cancer till Sagittarius, it is in southerly course, that is Dakshinayan. So when Sun is in Uttarayan, northerly course, all the planets, they get Ayan Bala except Saturn and Moon. I'm talking of Ayan Bal, not Cheshta Bal. Okay. So except Saturn and Moon, all planets, they get Ayan Bala when Sun is in northerly course, means when Sun is in Uttarayan. When Sun is in Dakshinayan, Moon and Saturn, they get Ayan Bala. Okay, so that's Ayan Bala. Next one is Naisargik Bala, natural strength. Natural strength is strength of a planet by its natural order. Varamir has given this. By default, Sun is the strongest planet. Second is Moon. Third is Venus. Fourth is Brihaspati, Jupiter. Then comes Mercury. Then the 2 malefics, Mars, then Saturn, in that order. So from strongest to weaker. So Sun is strongest and Saturn is weakest by their natural strength, Naisargik Bala. Varamir has given this order. So other things standing equal, Naisargik Bala is supposed to be used. So I have tried to order the sequence in the order you should see the Shad Bala, of which first 4, rather I would say the Sthan Bala, Sthan Bala, Dig Bala, Cheshta Bala are the 3 most important one for practical analysis. Which one? Sthan Bala. Which Rashi the planet has gone. Okay, Sthan Bala. Then Digbala, positional strength, very important, directional strength, sorry, very important. Okay, Jupiter and Mercury in the first house, Venus and Moon in the fourth house, Saturn 7th house, and Sun and Mars in 10th house. That is the Digbala, important. Then never miss a retro planet or the Cheshtabala of Sun and the Moon. Okay, if it is retro and for Sun and the Moon, you know how to see. Okay, these are important, and if these other things standing equal, then you check the Nasargic Bala. Ayan Bala is also a little bit, I mean, it's not so important. It doesn't decide a lot of, it's not a game changer. But game changer are the Sthan Bala, Dig Bala, and Cheshta Bala. Okay, cool. So Muthu, we'll take the answers in the questions in the end, or I should continue with the slides.
Yeah, please proceed with the slide. We will take the questions in the last.
So that is the six-dimensional. Kalbal is also, I mean, important after this. Okay, see, everything that rishis have written is important, but from a practical perspective, when you are kind of looking at all the planets, it becomes too much to see at every detail. So yes, Kalbal is important. That's why it is there. But if you look at the top three things, kind of you are practically almost there. I mean, you can't go wrong from there. Okay, even if you have missed out the Kalbala, your analysis will still hold. Yeah. So coming to Vimshopak Bal. So this is another Bal system. This is another Bal system which has been mentioned in Brihat Prashar Hora Shastra, and this requires something advanced. So I'm not going to talk about advanced thing in this class here, but I will tell you what to see where, so that you can just look in your software that the charts that they have made, and you can check the stuff there. So I want you to understand the concept here. If you understand the concept, whenever you learn the advanced subjects, you can integrate it with this class. Okay. So Vimshokpal is a 20-point system. Vimsha means 20 in Sanskrit. So Vimshokpak means 20-point maturity. Okay, something gets matured after some time. Okay, in the investment. So we are talking of the point maturity. So on the maturity scale, how much a planet can give results, how matured, how ripened a planet has become in the birth chart to give results. So that is also a symbolism of strength of a planet. You can think of Vimshokpal Bal as a planetary strength which is capable of delivering results, and this is more effective in Dasha Antardasha. The previous thing what we did, see, these are things you don't find anywhere. Okay, written or mentioned in even classics or in literature. So please pay attention here. What we did just before this, the six-dimensional strength, the Shadbala. Yeah, what we did here in this slide that you see on your screen is for mostly the static analysis. You understand the planets, how they are going to play the role in different domains of life, how strong they are. Okay, but in this next slide, that is Vimshokpal Bal, this is the actual deliverability of planet when it is active in my life, whether in transit or whether in Dasha. We mix both and then we predict, right? So in Dasha, let's take Dasha. This is more important. Whether it will deliver the result or not, how ripened it is to deliver the positive result. See, the universe is not out to harm us or screw us. Okay, when a planet is when we experience tough time in the Dasha, it's doing a course correction. When you eat a medicine, You know in your conscious mind that it may taste bad, but it is going to cure me in the future. But when planets are doing something we are not capable of understanding, we are too small entity. Planets have more repository of awareness. They are not mud balls in our Vedic system. They have some consciousness. Okay, so how ripe a planet is in my dashantar dasha to give me positive results, that is seen from Vimshokpal Bal system. Now here I have taken the 6 Vargas. Now there are Vargas. Vargas means a sign of 30 degree. If Saturn is in Capricorn, it's going to be there for 2.5 years. It spends 1 month in 1 degree. Is it going to behave the same in all those people born in these 2.5 years, those millions of people around the world? No, obviously. So there has to be a way to differentiate your Saturn versus my Saturn if we both have Saturn in Capricorn in birth chart, or the quality of Saturn as it is today and how it will be 6 months from now. It will still be in Capricorn in 6 months from now. But how do I delineate? How do I separate the behavior of Saturn if it is in the same sign for this long period? So we have been given what we call Vargas or Amshas. Varga is the space and Amsha is the number of divisions. So if I divide a sign by 9, it is Nav Amsha. So it's called Navamsha, 9th division. And then we allocate sign to every division. I'm not getting into theoretical detail here that how do we assign Navamsha, perhaps a topic for some other day, these divisions, Vargas. But just to understand it from a planetary strength perspective, that how ripened are they to give good results. In your softwares, you will always have the main Rashi chart D1. Then you also have many other diagrams which people use as chart. I have some opinion on that. I'm not going to talk about it now. But then what popularly people call, okay, D9 or Navamsha chart. So you have those in the software. What do you see there is the signs and the planets also there. I mean, houses are there, but I'm talking of focusing on the signs here. Similarly, you have D12, Dwadashamsha. You have D30, Tramshamsha. So there are 6. So I've mentioned it here in the slide. Rashi, that is D1 chart, then Navamsha D9, Drekan D3, Hora and Dwadashamsha and Tramshamsha. And I've written the marks opposite that. So Rashi chart has 6 marks. Navamsha placement of a planet has 5 marks and Drekarna has 4 marks, and then 2 each. So 4 marks go for Hora 2 and Dwadashamsha 2. So total 4 marks. Then remaining 1 for Tramshamsha. So they are taking the 6 Vargas as Varamira suggested, Shad Varga. This is not Shad Bala. Shad Bala is different. Shad Varga means 6 divisions when we divide a sign into different parts. So what you have to see here practically is, if you are looking at say Mercury Dasha, okay, if you are seeing Mercury Dasha, whether Mercury is going to give positive result or negative results or neutral. Mostly things are neutral in people's life, right? As I said, don't forget the view of the gray scale. It's not binary black versus white. Okay, so let me rephrase it. If you want to see Mercury, upcoming Mercury Dasha is coming, or Antar Dasha is, Bhukti is coming. You want to know how is Mercury Dasha going to be? I mean, whether it is more tilted towards positive versus negative, how ripe it is to give me. We are studying the strength here. Okay, so how ripened it is to give me results. How ripe it is to give positive results. I have to see Mercury here because I want to follow Mercury, let's say. So you have to see in Rashi chart how strong is Mercury. Just you have seen that. and is it placed in a good sign or not for Mercury. So you get out of 6 marks, you will have some, I mean, if it is an exaltation in own sign, so you'll give 5, 6 like that. If it is in debilitation, you will give one marks. Okay, out of 6 in Rashi. In Navamsha, in D9, where is it placed? Is it placed in a good sign versus bad sign? Good versus bad means whether it is in own sign or in a exaltation, Mool Trikona, or in a friend sign or in a enemy sign. In friend and enemy also, it is better if it is a natural benefic whose sign Mercury is placed. So it is better. Okay. Other things standing equal, it is better if it is a natural benefic. If it is not a friend also, if it is a neutral planet. So natural benefic planet signs, they are better for results, positive results. So if you add this 6 plus 5, similarly for Drekana, you have there are 4 marks. Now if you just see the top 3 here, 6 plus 5 plus 4, these are 15 out of 20. That is 75%, right? 75%. So 75% just by looking at 3 signs occupied by the planet, means in the Rashi chart, in D9 and in D3. Excuse me. So if a planet occupies good signs, so you should understand what are good signs for Mercury. Fundamental. Should study the planets and Rashis. So if you know what are good signs for Mercury, the exaltation, Mool Trikona, own sign for Mercury is the same Virgo. Then friends, who are Mercury's friends? Saturn and Venus. Then enemies are Mars. Right? So you would want a planet to occupy its favorable signs in D1, D9, D3. And others also, of course. Dwadashamsha and Hora, they get 2 each. So you will understand that how ripe the planet is, how much ripened the planet is in the chart to give positive results. It will give as per its strength, which we have seen from the 6-dimensional strength, which is the Shadbala. There are a lot of variations of this Vimshokpal Bal. Then they use the Sapta Varga, Dasha Varga, Shodash Varga. So I have taken the easiest and most practical effective one, and Varahamihira has used the Shodash, the Shad Varga for this purpose. So the quality and quantity of results of a planet you have to understand in terms of fundamentals. Make sense? So
do you want to move to next slide?
Yep. So okay. Shall we do the examples now, because I think it is 8 past 8, so we can spend 10 minutes each at least on one chart. So this is a chart. Now these are my, I've done sessions for them. They are like my clients for years now. So this is a person who is who passed civil services. I mean, he is 2012 batch IRS, Indian Revenue Services officer. He is deputy commissioner in income tax department, and his date of birth, as you can see, 4th December 1983, 4:55 in the AM in Indian city of Lucknow. So that's there in the slide. Now I want to look at the 2 planets, Venus and Saturn here. Are these both strong by their Rashi? Yes, it's the Lagna. Venus is the Lagna Lord. Venus is Lagna Lord. Saturn is what we call Yoga Karaka for Venus ascendant people, and also for Taurus ascendant people, that it's Lord of one Kendra house, that is in this case 4th house, and also Lord of one Trikona, that is trinal house, which is 5th house. So Capricorn and Aquarius, they fall in 4th and 5th house respectively. So this is a functional benefic but natural malefic is, Saturn is always a natural malefic. Jupiter is always a functional benefic, natural benefic. We know these facts. But in this chart, Venus is not only a natural benefic, but it is functional benefic also. But there's a problem here in Venus, in Libra ascendant people, is that in Libra ascendant, Taurus is in the 8th house, so Venus is Lord of 8th house also. So functionality is not 100%, functionally benefic. Okay, but thankfully for Libra ascendant people, its Mool Trikona is in Kendra, is in ascendant. So by and large, it is more functionally benefic also than functional malefic. Natural nature doesn't change; it's natural benefic. We know that. In Taurus ascendant people, it is not the case. In Taurus ascendant people, Venus is the 6th house lord, where it is where the Mool Trikona sign Libra falls. So there is a bit of a challenge for Taurus ascendant people for Venus, the way it works. So it's important Venus is under some good aspect from good planet, it stays well. Otherwise, it's a problem for marriage out of the box actually, because of Venus is the significator of 7th house, is lord of 6th house in Taurus ascendant people, not this one. Here, Venus is by and large functionally pretty much benefic, and naturally it is anyway benefic. So Venus is conjunct Saturn is a great yoga. Most of the Raj Yogas, they talk about the rise in life and the financial aspect of it, material side. Okay, Raj Yogas doesn't necessarily convert to a to non-material side of life. For example, a peace of mind, emotional happiness, a great marriage. Raj Yogas are not about these things. Raj Yogas are about material side of a person. Okay, status, materialism, all right, the finances and related stuff, the resources kind things. So in the Lagna, you see out of the box, Saturn and Venus, they are placed. So Saturn is very strong here. It's in sign of exaltation. It's a sign of exaltation. And Venus is in own sign, that is Mool Trikona sign. It's Mool Trikona sign. Don't forget that. Okay. So as people say, Saturn and Venus are friends and all that. They are friends. They're friends for practical things of life. But this is indicating a very bad marriage. Very bad marriage. How? Saturn may be a functional benefic, but it will remain a natural malefic. And what did I say? The natural nature manifests more in the analysis part, and the functional nature is more important in the predictive part. So Saturn's natural nature is its malefic. When it is in the first house here, it is strong, but it is afflicting by its natural nature many things here. It is not only afflicting the 7th house of marriage, it is also afflicting the significator of 7th house. It's a man's chart. Venus is the significator of the wife. So it is aspecting, or rather afflicting both the houses. Now, in astrology, we should not just see things from the house, the Lagna, because Lagna represents the fact. From moon, I mean, how is the experience of this person from marriage? How the person will feel about the marriage? And marriage is more about feeling, right? So from moon also 7th house you have to see. Where is moon? In 2nd house. Do you see in 2nd house moon? So which is the 7th house from there? Where Rahu is placed? The Taurus. So Venus is the lord of 7th house from Chandra also. So Saturn is afflicting that also, right? Venus. So Saturn is afflicting a lot of stakeholders from for marriage. Then there are many other things. I'm not getting into it. The lord of 7th house Mars has gone to 12th house in enemy sign. Okay, so it indicates issues with the marriage. And Mars is under aspect from Rahu. I take Rahu aspect. It's there in the classics. It's there in Jatak Parijat. Okay, Rahu's aspect is there. People generally ignore it, don't know it. Most people don't know that where in classics it's mentioned Jatak Parijat. So all the stakeholders are in difficult situation in the house of marriage for this person. So this person has an excellent career, but for marriage this is a problem chart. Now he has faced. Now one more thing I want you to see in this chart. Look at the stakeholder of father's house. What is father's house? Ninth house. It is also the house of luck and fortune in life, because luck and fortune can't be had unless you have a strong father, you have strong value systems, or you have strong guru, that is someone who teaches you value system or whatever. So these are only three ways you can get lucky: by your own principles, the strength of principles, you remain strong and thereby lucky; by good teaching, you can become lucky in due course; and if you have a strong father, if you have someone like, a lot of politicians we know, I don't want to make political statements. So their only thing is that they have a strong father. Okay, that the only achievement to luck is that that they have a strong father. So ninth house is also a house of fortune because of these reasons. So Mercury from third house is aspecting own sign Gemini in ninth house. What do you say about the father here? Father was an abusive person. Was means he's very much living, but father has been abusive person. He used to hit his mother. You see the weakness of moon isn't sign of debilitation, though there is a support from Jupiter. Okay, but it is closer to sun. Sun is not good for moon. It is closer to moon, it creates problem. Moon is weak when it is near sun. Okay, moon is weak if it is near sun. Moon is happiest if it is away from sun. Understand these basics. So moon is in trouble here. It's near sun. It is in sign of debilitation. Ketu is also there, suddenly creating upheavals in the emotions. But Jupiter is there, so things didn't go out of hand. Anyway, so this chart shows abusive father, because Mars is not only in the sign of Mercury, it is aspecting Mercury also. And that Mercury is aspecting his ninth house, so has been a problem, the Martian problem. Okay, but because Mercury is anyway aspecting own sign, so his luck did not disintegrate. His luck stood the ground. Mercury could salvage the luck, but could not salvage the stakeholders of father, because Sun and Mars, they have managed to bring it down. It's important to have the lord of the house as well as the significator of the house to be at good houses from that house. So from ninth house, Sun is at sixth house. The second house is sixth from when you count from ninth house. So his father's individual nature has worked against him and his life, his mom, everything. But then, as life has it, Saturn's basic nature is not supporting the emotions, human bondings, enjoyments in life, fun factor in life. Saturn is a planet of isolation, separation, taking some pains and working hard and then achieving things. That's Saturn. In this chart, Saturn is the fourth house lord. The individual lady mother is Moon. I mean, in her individual capacity, even before she became mother of this person, she was always a person, right? And she is always an individual person. That's Moon in a chart, the significator, right? The fourth house significator, Moon. But that lady playing the role of his mother is the fourth house lord, that is Shani, the Saturn, right? Saturn is the fourth house lord. That Saturn is afflicting his marriage. So he had an issue in his marriage because he had this strong bonding with his mom, and when the girl came after marriage, his wife, there were some problems because of the mother and the wife could not gel together. And this is, you see, the affliction of marriage stakeholders by Saturn in action here. So if you look at the D9 and D3, you will see the Venus is strong. Venus is strong. Venus is Vargottam. Okay, so this person is strong character. This person has been able to drive things along smoothly, but he could not save his marriage because of Saturn's strength and Saturn's placement in difficult Vargas. So the thing is, strength of a planet is good. Saturn is a key planet in his rise in life. You know that in India, civil services is the toughest exam. Lakhs of people are up for it. Only, how many passes, right? I want to make a number and, talk about different categories. But you know how many pass. So the probability of success is how low and how high, you know that in civil services. So this person must be having a special chart. That's why he got there. His 10th house Lord Moon is also in debilitation. Okay, but this is where astrology comes out of the ordinary, out of the ordinary's reach. Because if you ignore the Sun and Moon Lagna, means the Sun and Moon signs, then you cannot see the person's career. The fact is he has a great career. But if you saw only 10th house Lord Moon, then you will not reach the conclusion. But if you saw that from this second house where he has these 4 planets, where Sun and Moon are also there, so that becomes a very important power center. That becomes an alternate Lagna. It's there in the classics. I'm not making these things up. Okay, you cannot have a understanding of a chart without Lagna, Sun and Moon as alternate Lagnas. They are the 3 tripods of a horoscope. Okay, so if you see from this second house, which becomes an alternate Lagna, the 10th house is where the Leo is in the 11th from ascendant. That's 10th from Chandra and Moon sign and Sun sign, and its Lord is in the second house from ascendant in the Chandra and Surya Lagna, that is Sun itself, aspected by a natural benefic Jupiter, which holds its ground. And second house is a powerful house. It shows how much of power you will have in society, which translates to money. That's fine. But how much power you will wield, how many people will report to you. If you want to see, just see in second house how many planets are there and how many planets are aspecting there. These are the people who will be under your belt. These profile people will be under your belt when you are doing your karma in the public. 10th house is the career, karma in public. So this is what I wanted to show, how Saturn and Venus played a role, how Mercury and Mars have played a role as far as father is concerned and marriage is concerned. So you need to see the strength of a planet and the way Saturn is playing its role. Good bad, good guy versus good cop and bad cop, both is played by Saturn. So unless you delineate the natural versus functional nature, it's difficult to do horoscope analysis. They both are strong. So Saturn delivered the result, and he did not disintegrate because Venus is very strong and benefic, because it's in Vargottama Navamsha also, Vargottama Drekkarna also. It's in Libra. And Libra is Venus's own sign, that too Mul Trikona. So we can move to the second example. That's more interesting actually. Here I want to show the contrast between Jupiter and Mercury. So it's very interesting here. It's even more interesting chart, second one. Yeah. So in this chart, this is chart of a lady. who has done extremely well in IT. Okay, she has been delivery head for many years uh, uh, in a premium Indian IT company, has handled the topmost global clients. At one time, she was my boss. Later, she became my client, and she still is. She consults me every year before appraisals. Okay, so now I want you to focus on her. This is a Virgo ascendant chart. So in Virgo ascendant, you have Jupiter, Lord of fourth and seventh house, and Mercury as Lord of Lagna and 10th house. Okay. Now I want you to compare Jupiter and Mercury here. They both are in their own signs. Agree? Jupiter actually looks pretty strong, more strong, because it's in its Mool Trikona sign. Okay. Then Jupiter is having Cheshta Bal, a retrograde planet, right? And Mercury has Sun. See, whenever Sun is near any planet, you have to watch out. It's very important. People ignore this. It's called Asta or combustion. You want Sun to be away from all the planets actually, because just like in photography, when you overexpose a subject, it gets kind of burnt out. You can't see by highlight. It's you can't see because it's overexposed. So Sun does that to a planet. If a planet is weak by itself, it's underexposed. I'm not talking about that. But if Mercury, thankfully for her, Sun is at 9 degrees, Mercury is at 29 degrees, so it's away, far away. Okay, it's not combust. At least you want planets to be 6, 7, 8 degrees away from Sun. Okay, it's better. Officially, the combustion ranges are there. Okay, but generally, it gets really crippled to give good results if it is like 6, 7 degrees, close to Sun. So coming back to this, Jupiter and Mercury, these are two planets which I have to compare here. Now, which of the two are strong? So from looking at the main chart D1, it looks like Jupiter is more stronger. But tell you what, it's Mercury that's more stronger and benefic and more ripe for better results, because the Navamsha where Jupiter has gone, that is Cancer Navamsha. And if you look in this chart, D1, Cancer Moon, the Lord of Cancer, means the Navamsha Lord of Jupiter, is in debilitation, is in Scorpio. It's a problem. It doesn't get the support from the Navamsha Lord. Then in D3, Trikarna, Jupiter has gone to Aries. It is the sign of Mars, and Mars is also in debilitation in the Rashi chart. So Jupiter's ability to actually give results is lesser than Mercury. Now look at Mercury. Mercury is in its own sign in 10th house. You know that. That's like strong house. But it has gone to Gemini, Navamsha. It's Vargottam in own sign. It's Vargottam but in own sign also. And same sign because it's Vargottam. So it is more in control of its results and its 10th lord. And then it's in good Drikan also. It's in Drikan of Shani, that is in what you call Aquarius. I'm not getting into other things here, okay, because Mercury is in Punarvasu Nakshatra. So it's a predictive thing. I don't want to touch that here because the topic was not that. But just to give you, just to finish the point, Mercury is in Punarvasu Nakshatra, which is Jupiter's nakshatra. So Mercury will give the results of the houses where Jupiter, it owns. So 4th and 7th house results Mercury will give. So it's good houses and it's placed in 10th house. But if you see Jupiter, it's in Mula Nakshatra. So Ketu. Now Ketu is influenced by Mars, which is 8th house lord. So Jupiter is not able to deliver the results as much as Mercury can. She always had the support of the authority figures, the top bosses, because that sun in Digbala. So these people, I mean planets in Digbala, these profile people will support you. Okay, Digbala means that also. So she has got support from the authority figures. So this is how you do a study of a planet. You have to see that what Rashi, what houses, what kind of strength is this getting there. You cannot ignore the Navamsha sign. Just see chart analysis in Navamsha and D3. If you do, things can go out of hands. I don't do that. I've questioned that in public sphere. There's been a parallel debate going on. Forget about those things. But if you just look at the signs a planet occupies in D9 and in D3 and others also, but these are the most important ones, as we saw, 75% they cover D1, D9 and D3. So you are pretty much in control of how a planet is going to perform in its dasha antardasha, how capable it is to give positive results. So on one side you have a static strength, other side you have its capability to give results in the predictive side, in Vimshokal. So these are the two pillars of planetary strength, and they work as per their natural versus functional nature, whether benefic or malefic. And I've explained that also, that when the natural benefic or malefic nature dominates and when the functional nature dominates. So these are the things I wanted to take up. So I am actually, from my side, whatever I planned in this 90 minutes, I'm done. So we can do whatever, take questions or as Muthu suggests.
Yes, Partha, thank you for a wonderful explanation. So before we take up the Q&A, there is one more poll. Given a horoscope now, how confident are you now in judging the planetary strength? So you have listened to the Partho session. So now, given a horoscope, how confident are you now in judging the planetary strength? After this, we will take up the Q&A.
No questions?
No, question will come next actually. Lot to learn. Quite
okay,
confident.
sorry. How they feel, yeah.
Good. Some people feel better placed than before. That's nice.
Good to know. Good to know. You can be frank if you want to. I won't hold against you. 90 minutes has its own limits.
Yeah, better analysis. Nice. Yeah, of course, astrology is an ocean to learn. There is always scope to learn.
Yeah.
So there is nothing wrong. Got good insight. Thank you. That's nice. Okay, thanks. Thank you for, okay, some more is coming. Far better than before. That's very good. That's nice to know. Got good insight.
Nice to know.
Great. So next we will take the Q&As. So basically you can type in the Q&A your questions there. So it will automatically pop up here. So meanwhile, if there are any questions typed in the meeting, that also I will take it up.
Yeah.
Okay, some people also try to explain the planetary combinations in the chart you explained. That's very nice. Okay, before the question pop up here, I think we'll take few questions in the comment section. Popkar 3 yoga for 10th is hemmed between two malefics. Does it affect her career? Okay, I think this is for the second chart.
I think second chart.
Yeah.
She did have issues because of these things. Thankfully, this Papkartari has been voided by uh, by Venus being on one side. And remember, uh, in this chart, in 10th house, it's Mercury who's in control, because it's happening sign of Mercury, and in 9th house, it's in the sign of Venus. So Venus is more in control. So Saturn has to go via Venus's, what do you call, if you want to use the word, consent. Okay, so Venus is kind of bigger stakeholder in 9th house than Saturn, so that has helped. Okay, but she did have problems. Every factor counts. Okay, so you have a Saturn this side and Mars on the other side, Papkartari, but Jupiter's aspect on 7th house, 10th house, as well as other houses. You know, in our astrology, a lot of people say, fatalistic things are kind of more highlighted. But if you read the structure of any classics, I'm a man who has come from classics. You have lessons on Arishtha Yoga. Arishtha means fatalities. Okay, Arishtha Yogas. Then next lesson is in all the classics. That's how it's structured. Next lesson is Arishtha Bhanga Yogas. Means what are the combinations that destroy those Arishthas or fatalities in the chart. You know, in among those across all the classics, number one Arishtha Bhanga planet is Jupiter if it gets placed in Kendra houses, particularly in the Lagna and 4th house. It destroys lots of fatalities, difficulties, hardships in the chart. So Jupiter's aspect on this 10th house is literally a Ganga Jal, as well as Saturn's kind of, having a veto on the energies going from 9th house towards the Kartari. So it is kind of a Papkartari, not a strong one. Jupiter's aspect destroys that tough situation.
Okay. Thank you. I think one more question to me. Is it possible that we all present here come in one Telegram group to discuss and learn astrology? Yeah, definitely. We already have a Telegram group. Possibly I will send the invitation to join that group after this meet. So you can join there. Most of the people here are already there. So definitely you can also join there. Okay, let's, there is one question come into the Q&A section. How bad planets behave when placed in 6th, 8th, and 12th house?
Okay. Now, from when you see from Lagna, it makes the planet weak. Please understand, it makes the planet weak. So who suffers? The Lord of which those houses. I mean, let's say Venus gets placed in 6th house. So who suffers? Venus suffers, not the 6th house, because 6th house has a benefic there. So it suppresses the negative results of 6th and it enhances the positive results of 6th house. Okay. So who suffers? Venus suffers. How Venus suffers? The Lord, whose Lord is the signs where Venus is, the houses where Venus signs have fallen in the chart. That is Taurus and Libra. Wherever these two signs have fallen in the chart, so those houses suffer, as well as Venus's natural significations, they suffer. So yes, a planet behave means in static analysis, the planet will go weak if it is placed in 6th, 8th, or 12th houses. But this can also be opposite if you see that the sun and or moon signs are stronger than Lagna. Then from those signs, this 6th or 8th or 12th houses could be good houses. Look at Amitabh Bachchan's Vedic chart. He has the powerhouse in the 8th house. Einstein has it there. Albert, the Adolf Hitler has very powerful 8th house. So 8th house or 6th houses, they can be very powerful depending on where sun and moon is. So I always start with the structure of a chart. Look at where Lagna is, where sun is, where moon is. These are the three tripods. From there, you talk of 8th, 6th, and 12th houses. The scene will be very different than it appears from just Lagna.
Right. Thank you. Thank you for answering. Let me go to next question. I'll mark this as answered. Okay, what happens when Payu's Jupiter sits in 8th house with moon?
What is
Maybe I think auspicious. That's what I think.
Jupiter since Jupiter in 8th house. First of all, again, I just said that before in the last question. It's not good for Jupiter to be in 8th house. So who suffers? Jupiter suffers, means it's the houses that Jupiter lords, those houses suffer, and Jupiter's own natural nature suffer. That means if Jupiter is the significator of 9th house of belief system and value system, so typically a morality of the person can suffer from Jupiter's placement in 8th house, because from 8th house Jupiter is aspecting the 2nd house of Dhana. Okay, but we cannot conclude just by one factor here, because this Jupiter placed in 8th house could be 9th house or 5th house from Moon. Then this immorality thing will not come in the picture. So from Lagna, yes, what I said, it applies.
Right. Okay. Thank you. Thanks for answering. Let me mark this answer. Malefic Saturn, how should Bala? Will Dasa is good or bad?
Malefic Saturn have good Shadbala. Will Dasha be good or Shadbalas of capability? Saturn becomes capable of giving good results in material sense and avoiding any negative results in life, whether personal front or material front. Whether it will give good result or bad result, you have to see from the Vargas, the Vimshokpak Bal system. Means if it is in good signs in Navamsha and Drekana 2, then it will give good results. Okay, one deal breaker in entire good versus bad results is never ignore the nakshatras, because the scope of this question is huge, so I'm not covering everything here in 90 minutes. If the nakshatra you cannot predict without the nakshatra placement of the planet, so it has to be placed in the nakshatra of a planet which owns good signs.
Right. Okay. Thank you. Let me go to the next question. Okay, I think same question is repeated here. Can other strongly placed planets give good results if Lagna and Lagna Lord is afflicted? I mean afflicted, I guess.
Maybe, huh? Can other strongly placed planets give good results if Lagna? No. See, the simple answer to your question is no, very less likely, because Lagna represents the native. If the native himself or herself is not strong, how will the person make the right decisions and how the person will face challenges? So for anything good in life, Lagna and Lagna Lord. Lagna means the circumstances around you and Lagna Lord means you. So Lagna and Lagna Lord both should be good. In fact, Lagna Lord strength is the most important.
Right. Okay. Thank you.
Sir, I have a doubt here. Can I intervene, please?
Sure. Yes, please go ahead.
My point was in this previous question, when the Lagna and the Lagna, the Lord is weak, but the strongly placed planets, like let us say the father was strongly placed in the 9th house, mother is strongly placed in the 4th house. I think it should not be directly measured with the Lagna and the Lagna Lord. Maybe the person might be, let us say, retarded personality, but has a good family background, rich family background, and a good father to take care for his whole life. No,
I understood your question. You will have a Rahul Gandhi there. I'm not making a political statement, but you will have a Rahul Gandhi where a strong father, he can take you to places. But if you yourself are not a strong, focused character who likes to take challenges and faces them and take it to finishing end, that is the weakness you get if the Lagna Lord is weak. So I would expect people to be strong themselves to take the benefits. These are all helpful factors. A strong father, legacy money, they can make your life comfortable, but they will not make you an achiever. So you can get rich by your efforts or others' effort, or you just got lucky. But most of the yogas that are there, when they are Raj yogas, they are talking about the achievers. So for achievers, with self efforts, you need Lagna Lord to be strong. That doesn't mean people who don't have a strong Lagna Lord, they don't have good things in their life. They can get lucky, for example, by father, and they can still enjoy a good life. Doesn't mean that they are great achievers.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. Thanks for that. Basically, my opinion is like if Lagna Lord is strong, the native would be able to do it himself. Like it is self effort. And
Achieve.
more importantly, in many of the Raja Yogas, by definition itself, the first line will be always like the Lagna Lord should be strong. So that's something very important. Of course, it doesn't mean that it's the only factor. It's one of the important factor.
Yeah, that's right.
Okay. Okay. Next question. If the planet is natural benefic but functional malefic, example Venus. Okay. Do a person always face challenge in relationships?
If the planet is natural, if Venus is a functional malefic, I gave example of Taurus ascendant charts. That's not the only place, but that's a great example to understand the concept. In Taurus ascendant people, Venus is the lord of sixth house, and its Mool Trikona is in sixth house. Means that's the more active sign. Okay, that will manifest more actually in static analysis. So there is itself a challenge of Venus that Venus has because it's a stakeholder of marital happiness in all charts, whether male or female native. Okay, Venus is a stakeholder of marital happiness, but in a male chart, it represents the wife, also the person. So in that case, if in any ascendant sign, forget Taurus. If Venus is placed in sixth house, it is not a good placement for marital happiness. It can be good for other things, for example, foreign life or reducing the challenges in life, handling the professional rivals that people call enemies. So it's good for these things, but not for marriage.
Right. Okay.
Yeah.
So thank you. So let me go to the next question. What does Shadbala score signify? Is there a significance of 28 score?
28 score, where is it? Like it's a 20 score. I think there's a typing mistake. It's 20 score. So significance of 20 score is what we discussed in the Vimshopak Bal system, which is about how much ripe, just like a fruit is ripe, right? How ripe the fruit is. If you want to enjoy the sweetness of mango, for example, you will wait for it to be ripe. Okay, otherwise you won't get the sweetness of mango that you're looking for. Similarly, the sweetness of a planet is felt when it scores maximum marks in Vimshokpal Bal system. That happens when it occupies the good Vargas in a horoscope. So that is the significance, that it gives good results in the predictive domain when its Dasha Antardasha comes, if it has a good Vimshokpal Bal system. I don't know what is 28 score system, if there is any. If you meant 28, I don't know. I discussed 28 and that's the only thing I know. Yeah.
In the software gives 7 Shadbala scores. Does it mean it is the highest score? What will one mean?
Yeah, as I said, I briefly touched upon this, that there are Shadbala or it is Shadvarga. I think there's a confusion here. There is nothing called 7 as mark 7 as Shadbala. So it's a relative score, as I was talking. In Shadbala, they have given a score. For example, because this I wanted to keep it very practical session. For positional strength, that means for Sthanbala, if a planet is in exaltation, give it let's say highest mark 6 marks. If it is in Mool Trikona, give it 5. If it is own sign, give it 4. If it is a friend sign, give it 3. Like that. So if you can think of a system like this, so the softwares are giving the relative marks, that compared to Mars, how much Venus has in the Shadbala. So 7 indicates a comparative strength of planets in the horoscope. So in J-Aura, the free software also has this.
Right. How we should see the planet strength in case of Neecha Bhanga Raja Yoga?
Okay. So Neecha Bhanga Raj Yoga, it has 2 words. One is Neecha Bhanga, one is Raj Yoga. Raj Yoga, again, the entire chart will decide, not just one combination. Neecha Bhanga typically gives a strength of a person coming back from a difficult time, from a challenge, from a fall. Okay, so you face a tragedy, you felt dishonored, you felt kind of someone terminated from job, whatever, or retrenched, lost a job, whatever. There's a setback in life, and from there the person can the person come back. So Neech Bhanga gives it shows these kind of tendencies in the person, that if the person falls, because if the planet is in the sign of debilitation, so this person will face some setback in life in whatever domain that planet is talking about. Can the person recover and come back strongly and on top from there? So that's the complete Neech Bhanga. So Neech Bhanga, is it overcome, and then does it convert to Raj Yoga? So these are three different steps. If you see the common minimum denominator across all the classics for the definition of Neech Bhanga, you will see that a planet, if it is compensated by the strength or aspect of its sign lord, the person can come up out of its inherent weakness. So yes, this is how you will read you should see the Neech Bhanga Raj Yoga.
Right. To add it to that, for example, as Partho said in the first slide, like when Shadbala is very strong, it is have ability to block the unfavorable results, right? So,
Yeah.
right. So similarly, like in case if Neech Bhanga is happening between Mercury and Venus, like Mercury is debilitated where Venus is exalted. So go to the Shadbala of Mercury and see if the Shadbala is good. In case if it is good, the setbacks may not be very heavy, or the person will be able to come up quickly. So the negative results will be literally can be blocked. So that is what the good strength of Neech planet would indicate.
Absolutely.
Let me mark this also as answered. Okay, one more question. But what if Jupiter is in the 8th house and it is a own house? Okay.
Very good question. Whenever you have this contradiction between house versus signs, in the manifested world in Bhuloka, the sign will always dominate. So, and the opposite thing is that if Jupiter is in 4th house in Capricorn, the opposite of it, okay? If it is in 4th house in Capricorn, what will happen? It is far better than having a Jupiter in exaltation or own sign in 8th house. If it is own sign, it is good for the house because the house gets strengthened because its lord is there. Okay, it's also good for longevity, a natural benefit placed in 8th house. It will protect the person from accidents and fatality and akala mrityu, untimely death. So Jupiter will defend it. But the fact that it is in the 8th house, that will dominate more the other Rashi factor.
Right. Yeah, it is a good practice to judge as a whole point. Like for example, Partho has given the lot of Shadbala, right? So basically you cumulate it together to see what is the Shadbala of Jupiter. So that will give a big picture, like how it is going to behave in the real time. And as he repeated in the many answers, like any planet, if it goes to the Dusthana house, the planet becomes weak, but however the house becomes gets the good results. So that's a common role everywhere it is mentioned in the text actually. So let me mark this also answer. Let me go to here and see if there is any questions in the comment. Okay, I don't see any. Okay, I don't see any questions here also. Okay, one more is coming here. Can we have Shadbala of Rahu Ketu? If not, how should we calculate the strength? Actually, Rahu Ketu is not a real planet. It's a shadowy planet. So as per the text, there is no Shadbala calculation for Rahu and Ketu. So for Rahu and Ketu, you just need to see the placement in the horoscope. And also you can see the nakshatra, which is ruled by Rahu. Like for example, if Rahu is placed in a particular sign, then find who is the Lord and what is the nakshatra of that particular placement. So based on these two factors, we can pretty much say whether Rahu and Ketu are strong. Let me take one more. What happens when Mars and Mercury are present together and Mercury is in exaltation, 11th house Virgo? Okay, I think if it's for a Scorpio ascendant, where Mercury is exalted in 11th house with Mars. Of course, we cannot say only just because of this conjunction. Basically, Mars becomes the 1 and 6th lord, and Mercury is again a malefic who is the 8th and 11th lord. So both are malefic conjoined. But you can see the Shadbala, like how the Shadbala of Mars and Mercury. If both are good, then the malefic nature may be a little bit lessened. But otherwise, it may give some negative results related to the 11th house. But still, the Mercury in the 11th house is good for profit and business aspects. So it's again how close the conjunction is, what are the other aspects. So all those things will play important role. Okay, so is there any other questions? Okay, Hitesh, I will help you with the Telegram group. I will send the invitation after this call.
Rahu and Ketu Shadbala, actually, a lot of people use for Digbal of Rahu the 7th house and for Ketu the 10th house because of the elements that are involved there. And the placement of Rahu, I mean, I have not come across any literature which I would say that Rahu is what do you call the Rahu's Aquarius and Ketu's Scorpio ownership to be used in the Vimshokpal bal and in the what do you call the Vargas, but from Varhamira's this thing, if you extend it, the planetary strength in the other classics that have been written over this thing, what do you call Braj Jatak, for example, Jatak Parijat. Saravali doesn't talk about it. So Jatak Parijat. So they say that Rahu and Ketu are the most powerful planets anyway. So there are exaltation debilitation signs. Most classics that they say they consider Taurus as exaltation. Some say Gemini, and so that would indicate its strength of Rahu Ketu. But you please understand, Rahu and Ketu are always very powerful in our subtle body, in the Muldhara and in the Sahasrar. That is how Rahu and Ketu are kind of blocking our 90% of the brain. That is how you understand in the practical, real sense of Rahu Ketu. So when we say they are the Maya, the Rahu is the Maya, it is blocking out the actual awareness of the self through by shrouding us out of the realities that we are deprived of with our sensory observations. So they are always powerful. The whole point is, yeah.
All right. So that's all the questions I have. So I don't think any other questions from the audience. So thank you everyone for joining this call and making it very interactive. Thank you, Partho, also for spending a lot of time today. I know it is off today.
Pleasure. It was nice. I got good questions. Felt pleasure to answer them. And if someone wants to reach out to me later, you can ask Partho. You can write my name, Partho Banerjee Astrology, on YouTube or Facebook. You can reach out to me.
Right. Thank you. Thank you so much. Thank you again for joining. Thank you, sir. Thank you. Have a great evening.
Everyone, bye bye. Take care. Enjoy.